Right everyone, today we're going to be talking about how to get almost 20% damage in phase 1 of the new challenge Rancor with our GL Ray squad. I've seen this team put out some amazing numbers in the raid, some even slightly higher than my own score, but I wanted to make a guide teaching you how to actually use the team as opposed to just uploading footage without any explanation. The good news is, once you understand the specifics of how to use this team, it's fairly straightforward and best of all doesn't require much RNG at all. I'd just like to say you need to use this team at 100% raid health to get these numbers, given that each phase gains 75% offense and speed to the boss for each 20% health it loses. Should you use this team past the thresholds, the numbers you receive will be greatly reduced, so be sure to coordinate your attempts with your guild officers so you can all take advantage of the first 20% of the phase together. Before we get started though, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell, join my Discord server, and consider sharing the video with your friends if you enjoy it. Now without any further delay, let's get started. So as always everyone, we're first going to talk about the mods and zetas you're going to need for this team to work. Unfortunately, both are a massive part of this team's performance. You're going to need some really fast mods to pull the same numbers as shown in this video. It will likely still work with lesser mods, but the damage you will get will be a lot less. You'll also need GL Ray's ultimate ability in order to get off one big final hit at the end, which is a large amount of the extra damage you'll see on this video, as it allows us an extra turn past enrage. Unfortunately, you also need Relic 5 on everyone to even enter the battle, but be sure to increase Relics to Relic 7 on GL Ray, 5s and if possible Rex, to help them survive and do that little bit of extra damage. I do generally have problems keeping 5s alive when I pass Lifeblood to Rex for the additional damage, so the more help for 5s the better. Moving on to zetas, there are 6 mandatory zetas. I'm being a little extreme here as Hermit Yodas and 3POs may not actually be needed, but I didn't want to take that chance as it's untested, and they do both help a little in this battle. So starting up is the team's leader, GL Ray. Now in all honesty, you should have all of her zetas done anyway, given her usefulness in other areas of the game, but specifically for this team, you will first need her Lifeblood zeta, which will grant the Lifeblood buff to the ally it was last used on. This can only be used on one person at a time, but it will increase damage dealt and reduce damage received by 30%, which is very useful for protecting 5s and boosting Rex's aerial advantage damage. You will also need her Leadership Zeta, which is going to grant damage immunity for one turn to each ally the first time they drop below 50% health, and then heal them when it ends, which again is very useful for protecting 5s throughout the battle, especially if he gets Deathmark and Rex cannot waste an aerial advantage to cleanse, which does happen fairly frequently. And finally, you'll need her Galactic Legend Zeta, which is going to boost her max health and protection by 10% per relic level and reduce the damage she takes by 30%. This is very important and why she needs to be Relic 7, given that the Lifeblood bonus protection given out to the team is based on Ray's max health, which means they get more bonus protection the more health Ray has. Next up is Rex's Zeta, which is going to reduce cooldowns on his 501st allies by 1 each time they take a turn. Now I know 5s is the only one this will affect, but his assist is vital for calling 3PO to assist, which in turn reduces Rex's aerial advantage cooldown later on in the battle, so this Zeta is very important for that. Up next is Hermit Yoda's Strength Flows from the Force Zeta, which grants 20% protection recovery and foresight to Jedi allies, as well as a shorter cooldown on the ability. Now given the mechanics of this raid, the only thing that applies from all of that is the cooldown reduction. Given how important this ability is for keeping Ray able to spam Lifeblood, having it could literally be the difference between a successful run or having someone taken out way too early, probably 5s in my experience. And finally we have 3PO's Oh My Goodness Zeta, which is going to allow the ability to land 2 stacks of Confuse on opponents it's used on. This is really nice to prevent the brutes from taunting. Given that we have no form of Dispel, this will come in handy to prevent taunts popping up at the worst possible moments. So next up we're going to talk about the mods. This is very important, so be sure to listen carefully or there's a good chance this team won't work well for you, as it is very mod dependent and there's quite a few specific things you need to do outside of speed. So starting up is the team's leader, GL Ray, who we have modded with 3 health sets with a total of 415 speed. Now you need to make sure she has very low speed from mods, none if possible, so that she can last longer post enrage in her ultimate stance, which will allow Rex 1 to 2 final aerial advantages. You also need to make sure you have health primaries on the circle, cross, triangle and arrow, so that she's giving out more bonus protection per Lifeblood. Next up is our Rex, who we have modded with a speed set and our 2 fastest mods with a total of 329 speed. Don't worry about anything else on him, speed is all that matters, and the more speed he has, the more aerial advantages you'll be able to use, so aim for as high as you can on him with your top mods. Up next is our 3PO, who we have modded with a speed set and another 2 of our fastest mods with a total of 311 speed. Be sure to focus on speed with him. Primaries don't matter too much, but be sure to avoid potency at all costs. This is because we don't want to be landing exposes on the main boss, as this will make him take turns quicker when it's popped. Given that we want to delay enrage for as long as possible, we need to avoid speeding him up any more than we have to. Next up is our Hermit Yoda, who we have modded with a speed set and another 2 of our fastest mods with a total of 325 speed. Similar to 3PO, speed is all that matters on him, given that he can't actually attack and won't really take any alarming damage in the battle. He's a great character to put those fast mods with odd primaries on if they have high speed secondaries. And finally is our 5, so we also have modded with a speed set and 2 fast mods with a total of 275 speed. Now this one hurts the most, as given the issues he can have staying alive, it would have been really nice to be able to boost him up with defensive stats. However, given that he needs to take turns often to call 3PO to assist, as well as give damage to aerial advantage, a speed set was too important for the team to work. Try to grab some health primaries if possible, but do not give up speed to do this. So I'm going to break this battle down into 3 parts to make it super easy for everyone to understand. The first part will be from the start of the raid until Rex has 3 stacks of translation. So to start up, you're going to want to avoid hitting the main Gamorrean guard in the middle as much as possible. You should not target him at all during this part of the battle, even with 3PO. This is because hitting the boss grants him turn meter, and if 3PO lands exposed and then it's hit, it grants him even more. We want to delay enrage for as long as possible, and during this part of the fight, there is no reason to hit the boss unless both side guards are dead. At the start of the battle, try to kill one of the side guards quickly, as the boss will respawn them on his first turn. This is a great trick as it allows you more attacks away from the boss. So some general tactics for this part of the fight: you're going to want to spam lifeblood on 5s as much as possible with Rey. Call Hermit Yoda to assist with 5s for the additional healing to delay Rey from dropping below 25% health, which is when she can no longer use lifeblood. And when this does eventually happen, only then should you use Hermit Yoda's large heal to bring her back to full health. 3PO needs to use his oh my goodness on Rex right away, targeting a side guard to grant him the first stack of translation. The second stack will be granted when Rex uses form up, which should be done right after 5's death mark to cleanse it. And then we will get the third and final stack of translation once oh my goodness comes off cooldown. Hermit Yoda should only be using his basic for the majority of part 1. Do not give Master's Training to anyone until Rex has 3 stacks of translation. Rey should not be using her ultimate or whirlwind. If she has less than 25% health, use her basic on a side guard. So Rex now has 3 stacks of translation, so we're now on to the second part of the battle. During this part, we are basically using 3PO's basic to reduce the cooldown on Rex's aerial advantage as much as possible, so that we can get some massive hits onto the boss. You also need to start swapping lifeblood between Rex and 5s at this point, as you're going to want the 30% extra damage on Rex each time he uses aerial advantage. Be sure to do this immediately after Rex gains his 3rd stack of translation, as his next turn will likely be his first aerial advantage. After he's used his first AA, it's now time to place Master's Training onto 3PO, which will call him to assist, reducing Rex's cooldowns. Do not place Master's Training on anyone else after this, and only use it again right after Rex has used AA. 3PO should now only be using basics, and 5s will need to start calling 3PO to assist from here on out. This is because with 3PO's basic and 2 3PO assists from 5s and Hermit Yoda, it will completely reduce the cooldown of AA, so Rex can go back to back. You don't need to waste Master's Training if Rex hasn't just used AA, as 3PO and 5s will be able to reduce the cooldown themselves so long as he hasn't just used AA, meaning Master's Training would be wasted. If Rex has just used AA and Master's Training is on cooldown, you'll be safe to swap Lifeblood back to 5s for a little bit, as he will start to struggle a little on this part due to the fact that Lifeblood will be on Rex more frequently, and there are less windows to cleanse Deathmark due to very quick AAs. Be sure to use Hermit Yoda's large heal on 5s if needed, as he can easily die, as sometimes the guard will KO him from above 50% health if he has no lifeblood, meaning damage immunity will not proc. Remember to avoid targeting the boss except for AA where possible, as you'll still want to prevent him gaining turn meter as much as you can. If there's a time where Rey cannot use lifeblood and no side guards are up, feel free to whirlwind the boss for an extra 100k damage. This opportunity did not happen for me though. Now I did make a mistake with the timing of 1 AA, meaning I could have easily gotten a good 22% had I done everything perfectly. It can be easy to mess up counting the cooldowns, so be sure to pay very close attention in your own attempts. I was going to wait another week before making this and try to get higher, but I wanted to get this guide done on time for my guild's first coordinated attempt today. That being said, I'm certain I'll be able to get at least another AA in on my next attempt. I do find this team very reliable for the most part. Unlike HSIF when it first released, this is a lot more skill based than RNG. If something goes wrong, it's generally your own fault as opposed to bad RNG, which is one thing I respect about this raid. While I don't like the scaling damage and speed mechanic as it puts certain guilds in multiple time zones at an unfair advantage, the rest of the mechanics, at least on this phase, are pretty fair in my opinion. It's also great that all of these characters are top tier in other areas of the game, or are requirements for other GLs, so there's no waste in gearing this team up, which is a welcomed relief. So there's only one turn left now until Enrage, which means on Rey's last turn before Enrage you need to activate her ultimate ability. Please keep in mind that some of the following tactics I developed after the filming of this footage. Outside of the ultimate, I pretty much still followed the part 2 system, which cost me a little extra damage, so this really is a moment of do as I say, not as I do. So at this point now, you have one last turn and your entire team will be immune to damage from Ray's ultimate, so you can unleash everything on the boss, given that once the ultimate ends, your team is pretty much dead anyway. Place Master's training onto 5s if possible for a little extra damage, and continue using 3PO's basic and 5's assist to reduce the cooldown of AA. You can use Hermit Yoda's large heal if Master's training is on cooldown, to maybe give the team a small chance of getting another attack off once the ultimate ends. Unlikely, but it could work. I hope you all enjoyed the video and learned how to use this amazing team to grab some very high damage on this new raid. I'll do all of your guild officers a favour now and remind you all to please coordinate with them. Don't rush the raid the second it opens and drop damage, as it will likely result in a failed attempt. Talk to your officers and plan when to drop damage so you can all get the most out of your teams. And there we have it everyone, just over 8 million damage, which I think worked out to around 19.7% damage. A little off the goal, but I did make a few small errors, so I'm confident getting more than 20% will happen for sure next time, and hopefully you can all do the same. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be sure to keep making videos on teams that work well for me in this new raid. Be sure to share this with your guilds to help them out, and I'll see you all very soon.